Hiya, folks. 3 people asked for a tour of my bookshelf. The shelf to this side on the bottom is my Three Stooges books. This is Larry Fine's autobiography published in the early 70s, and a very confusing little book because even though it's supposedly the Larry Fine autobiography, it also says by James Cerrone, and that's whose picture is on the back. But it's written as if it's in first person by Larry, and it's full of weird spelling and grammatical mistakes that are just bizarre. I didn't pay a lot for this book. I think I paid like $30, but I've seen it going on Amazon for like $300, so I'm not going to sell it, but I was kind of surprised that it's worth as much as it was. Also down here are my books about the Ghoul. There's only actually one book about the Ghoul, just about the Ghoul, but I have other books in which he's referenced, like books about Cleveland TV, and books about Detroit TV, and any book that I found that has a reference to the Ghoul in it, I just bought it. On the other side is mostly books that have something to do with dinosaurs. There's the dinosaur filmography, which is just capsule reviews of every movie that ever had a dinosaur in it. Also down here is this book that was very interesting to me, won't be interesting to any of you. I found this at the Akron Public Library years ago, and it's notable that it's one of the few books in English that has a couple of pages, 4 pages about Ultraman, in it. I saw this in the library, as I said, and I went looking for it to get a copy of myself, and it was forever. I couldn't find this, and I for a while I thought, did I just imagine that I saw this book? But finally I found a copy, so here it is. The shelf over here, the one you probably notice most, is full of science fiction books. This one, I bought it however much it was when it was new, and this one has gone skyrocketing in price too. I probably paid like 15 or 20 for it, and now it's worth a lot. It's a book about the outer limits. Also, over here are some books I found. I believe I found these when I was in France a few years ago. They're little, I think there's a word for this. They're photo comics. So inside is like they've taken stills from the movies and then turned them into comics, and they're in French, and there's all kinds of funky movies they did this to. I found them in this weird old bookstore in France, and I thought, my gosh, these are cool. I can't leave France without these. Oh, there's the taco truck. I bet you can hear that, huh? Above that shelf are more that you probably do see. The one I think is neat for me, my mom bought this for me when I was in like 8th grade or something. It's about horror movies, and it's got some cool pictures of Godzilla in it. A big fold out of Godzilla. And then over here, this behind the monster here, I put a little hand on him, which I thought was really clever. I put that human hand, and this bass guitar happens to fit exactly into the monster's hand. This section here are the collected letters of Philip K. Dick, which I've found a bunch of these through the years. They are just the letters that Philip K. Dick, the science fiction writer, author of the book that became Blade Runner and Man in the High Castle and Total Recall. That was his work too. These are fascinating, and this is another case of things I bought for relatively cheap that have gone way up in price. So I don't know. One time a thief broke into my house in Japan, and whoever it was took the most ridiculous things, like a pair of binoculars and stuff, and left everything that was on the bookshelves behind. Those are the actual valuable things that are in my place. These are mostly science fiction paperbacks. These I'll probably eventually get rid of, but I'm just lazy about it because I've read them all. Seven Eves by Neil Stevenson was real good. On this shelf, which you can't see, are books about Christianity. I have most of the things that Bart Ehrman wrote, or Ehrman, I'm not sure. I like his writing, and he's kind of interesting to me because, like me, he writes the same book over and over again with variations, and I'm sort of fascinated by somebody who can manage a career out of that, because that's what I do. Oops. Actually, all of my books are completely different. You should buy every one of them because you might miss something. Above that, out of sight of you guys, are 5 shelves full of books on Buddhism. So I do have books on Buddhism on my shelves. The only things I have that are kind of interesting in the Buddhist books are, I do have a copy of Joshu Sasaki's Buddha is the Center of Gravity. This is another one. Let's see, I think it's even written in here. Found this in a bookstore in Denton, Texas for $4. And you go on Amazon now, it's selling in the hundreds, but I got it for $4. This is also a rarity. This was published in India, a book about early Buddhism and the Bhagavad Gita, and comparing how Buddhism may have influenced the Bhagavad Gita, which is the main book of the Hindus. And this is kind of a controversial subject, Buddhism influencing the Bhagavad Gita, and it's not covered many other places. And then this one, this is the Soto Shu's official book of daily scriptures, published in English. I don't remember where I got this. What's neat about it is it's like a Japanese scripture book. This is the way they do them in Japan. It's like it's one long page, and then you can open it up from either side and have a book and look at the different scriptures that the Soto Shu uses in their services. Kind of neat. On that side, I have books about Dogen. So a few of the rarities. I have a bunch of different translations of Shobo Genzo, and this is the one by Yuho Yokoi. My teacher Nishijima Roshi did not like this translation, and I think its appearance was one of the reasons he decided to make his own translation. So I wasn't in a big hurry to find it, but I want to be a completist, and I eventually found a copy online for too much money, and I wanted it because I was writing those books about Dogen, Don't Be a Jerk, and it came from Beyond Zen. And the funny thing is, about a week after I got this and spent good money on the damn thing, somebody offered me a copy that they had that they were trying to get rid of. And I said, you might as well keep it, maybe sell it for a bunch of money because I got one. Another rarity on that shelf is Dogen's Formative Years in China by Takashi James Kodera, who was a professor in college of my teacher, Tim McCarthy. And this one's really hard to find, too. I found it by accident in some used bookstore. Again, one of these things where I didn't pay much for it and then found out it's valuable. And this one you can find anywhere. Well, actually, you can't find it anywhere. You have to go online and order it through Amazon, but I finally got a copy of it for myself. I've had this as a PDF for years, but I thought it'd be nice to have a printed copy. This is a Gudo Wafu Nishijima book of his talks that he gave for NHK Radio. Above there's another shelf of books in Japanese about Japanese monsters, and there's one over here too. The most coolest thing I have on that shelf, to me anyway, is Noboru Tsuburaya's book, Tsuburaya Noboru Ultraman o Kataru, which is Noboru Tsuburaya's chatting of Ultraman. The reason this is cool is it has the signature that he put on the book when I brought it to be signed by him during my job interview. And it even says the date, although I'm not sure. It looks like it could say 24th of April 94, or maybe it's 21st of April 94. Then there's this one, which has one of the coolest covers ever put on a Japanese book for kids. This is Komatsuzaki is the name of the artist. One of the things about books like this is they do these detailed inner structures sometimes of what's in the guts of the various monsters, so I always like those pictures. One of the other neat books on this shelf is Eiji Tsuburaya, Master of Monsters. I used to list this as kind of one of my books. It's actually written by August Ragone, so no doubt about it, 100% of the text of this book was written by August Ragone. But I put this whole book into motion. It was my idea and my baby. I found a company who wanted to do a book about Ultraman, and we couldn't do a book about Ultraman because there were legal troubles, so I convinced them, let's do a book about Eiji Tsuburaya. I found August to write the book. I found the pictures. I went all over the place finding these pictures and clearing the rights to the pictures, and it was a massive undertaking to do that. And then I had to fact check everything that August wrote in his text by either checking Japanese sources in books or actually going to the people that August wrote about and saying, hey, is this true what he said about you? So I'm as proud of this as any the books that have my name on the cover, because I did a whole lot of work on this. And the saddest part of all is, as you can see, there's another bookshelf over there, and what you can't see is there's another bookshelf over there, and a smaller one over there, and another smaller one over there, and another one over there. Books are kind of a problem for me, and I'm going to Europe, and I'll probably buy a bunch more. They're cheap, they're easy to get, they're fun to look at, and even if you look at pictures of me when I was a little kid, you'll see a bookshelf in my room, like I was a 7-year-old with a bookshelf. I don't know how many 7-year-olds have bookshelves like I did. I don't consider myself a collector. In fact, I consider this kind of a failing, like a personal failing of mine, that I keep buying books, and I own a lot more books than I've actually read. Every book I own, that at least the ones I don't get rid of, I have some connection to, which means I either read the whole book, or I use it for reference, or I just kind of enjoy leafing through it every now and then, even if I haven't read the whole book, because a lot of them are mostly photos. But I don't think this is an exemplary way for a Buddhist to live, and I would think it would be better to be kind of a minimalist. But I also know that among the Buddhist teachers that I've met, most of them are kind of book crazy. Tim has an extensive collection of books and DVDs and things. Nishijima Roshi had a ton of them in his place. Kodo Sawaki apparently used to annoy his handlers because he had these people that sort of assisted him traveling from place to place, and they would have to take like a trunk of books with him every time he went someplace because he couldn't be without his books. So, as much as I'd like to say that the Buddhist ideal would be to get rid of stuff like this, honestly, when you look at actual Buddhists, you don't find that too much. So I can't really explain that. I think most of us are kind of comfortable with it. I don't consider myself a collector, although I keep mentioning the value of some of the books. I just thought I'd show you the most valuable ones. Most of these books I bought for $5 or less. Even the ones I found out were valuable later, I bought for much cheaper. I'm not going to sell any of my valuable books. Sometimes I mention them to my friends because I'm like, if I suddenly keel over dead, don't just throw all the books at Goodwill or Salvation Army, because you could make some money off of these things. So there you go. This segment is probably much longer than it needed to be, and if you sat through all of this, remember that I'm going to be in Europe soon, and here are the dates and places I will be. All of these are open to the public. The first thing I'm doing there is in Turku, a screening of Zombie Bounty Hunter MD by Piruz Kaleh. He directed it and wrote it, and I'm in it. I'm kind of one of the main characters in the film. I play pretty much myself. So we're showing that in Turku, and maybe we'll be showing it some of the other places if people request it, because I'll have it with me. And that's it. Go to hardcorezen.info/events for more info on that. I am also soliciting your donations from PayPal and Patreon. I promise it won't all be spent on cheap books. Some of it might be, honestly, but that's also how I make my living and how I keep going and paying the rent and everything. So, thank you very much. See you later. Bye.